With eggs reaching 138% of what they were in 2021, $4.34, Paul Pelosi's attacker wishing that he got to hit more Pelosi's, and another wave of Antifa riots throughout our American cities. We are having a great year so far. You are watching the Demetrios Araujo Show, and I am your host, Demetrios Araujo. Without further ado, let's begin.
I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.
Like I was just talking about egg prices, in the United States, we are averaging around $4.25. That's a 138% increase from $1.79 a year earlier. According to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics data, by the way, a dozen eggs cost $1.38 in August 2020. The narrative being peddled by the industry is that there is a historic outbreak of the aviation influenza that has killed tens of millions of eggs-laying hens. Maybe chicken has gone up too. A pound of chicken cost $2.96 in March 2020, and last month it hit $4.34. But here's one weird thing. Have you noticed a scarcity of eggs or chicken at the grocery store? I sure haven't. According to this Daily Wire journalist, their local Walgreens is stacked up to the rafters with eggs and chicken. Eggs are pricey. They top out at $7.78 for this journalist at the Daily Wire, but they are there. So maybe something else is going on. Maybe, just maybe, there's something else responsible for those soaring prices. According to Joseph Curl, a journalist at the Daily Wire, that's what Farm Action, a former adversary group, thinks. The group says the, quote, real culprit behind sky-high prices is a collective scheme among the top United States egg producers to fix prices to gouge customers. In a letter to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, Farm Action said that the alleged collusion has helped egg producers to extract an outrageous profit, reaching as high as 40%. In the letter said aviation flu is not to blame. For the 26-week period ending on November 26, 2022, Cal Marine reported a tenfold year-over-year increase in gross profits from $50,392 million to $50,392,000 to $535,339,000, and a fivefold increase on its gross margins, the letter said. The group says the real culprit behind its 138% hike in prices of a carton of eggs appears to be a collusive scheme among the industry leaders to turn inflationary conditions and an aviation flu outbreak into an opportunity to extract enormous profit, reaching as high as 40%. In the end, what Cal-Maine Foods and other large egg producers did last year, and seem to be intent on doing it again this year, is extort billions of dollars from the pockets of ordinary Americans through what amounts to a tax on a staple we all need, eggs, the letter said. They did so without any legitimate business justification. They did so because there's no reasonable substitute for a carton of egg. They did so because they had power and they weren't afraid to use it. Now, with that being said, we should not blame the bird flu for this extraordinary inflation on the egg prices. Now let's dig into the headlines of the week. Body cam footage released showing Tyre Nichols beating by police. Body cam footage was released Friday evening, allegedly showing the interaction between former Memphis Police Department officers and Tyre Nichols that allegedly led to Nichols' death. Following the release of the footage, multiple news outlets reported that a group of protesters had marched onto the I-55 bridge, blocking all lanes as of approximately 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The Memphis Police Department issued a warning on Twitter to avoid the area if possible. 5 former Memphis Police Department officers were arrested and charged in connection to the incident for their alleged involvement in the death of the 29-year-old male, who died earlier this month in a hospital, days after the confrontation. Nichols died on January 10, 3 days after Memphis police pulled him over in a traffic stop. Local media reported Nichols and 5 former police officers involved are black. Authorities stopped Nicholas on January 7th for, quote, reckless driving near Rains Road and Rose Road in Memphis. Police told local media that during the stop, the confrontation occurred, at which point Nicholas ran away from police on foot as they attempted to apprehend him. While attempting to take the suspect into custody, another confrontation occurred. However, the suspect was ultimately apprehended, Memphis Police Department said. Afterwards, the suspect complained of having shortness of breath, at which point an ambulance was called to the scene. So there's a couple different videos from the city of Memphis. So each video is very, very long, but we're going to actually just see a summary of it. So officers, Officer Bean, Officer Haley, Officer Martin, Officer Mills Jr., and Officer Smith have all been charged with 2 counts of official misconduct, local media reported, with 1 count of official oppression, second-degree murder, aggravated assault act in concert, and 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping. Nicole's mother, Rao Van Wills, told CNN on Friday that those who protest her son's death should not riot because that is not what her son wanted. I don't want us burning up our cities, tearing up the streets, because that's not what my son stood for, Wells said. And if you guys are here for me and Tyree, then you will protest peacefully. When me and my husband go to the hospital and I saw my son, he was already gone, Wells said. They had beat him up to a pulp. He had bruises all over him. His head was swollen like a watermelon. His neck was busting because of the swelling. They broke his neck. My son's nose looked like an S, she said. They actually just beat the crap out of him. And so when I saw that, I saw my son was done. The end. Even if he did live, he would be a vegetable. And that's disgusting. See, the thing is that it's one thing to protest, but it's one thing to protest, but it's another thing to riot. We all agree that this is what happens when police have a big head and think that they're the ultimate power. Police are not the ultimate power. It's the court of the law that is the ultimate power. Police have the right to do only to a certain aspect is what is only needed in that situation. So if they do anything over that, then that is fully their fault. Police should know what they should do in every situation. So if this is what police officers will do, then we need to stop them from doing that. But like I said, or like everybody should know, police officers don't normally do this. This is a very, very seldom situation. And of course, this is not a racist situation because the police officers involved were black. Now, beating somebody to a pulp is not reasonable and is not fair and just under the legal system. So this should not be happening. They should have simply just arrested him. If they are resisting arrest, then they need to just tase him. Like they have things that they can use instead of beating somebody to a pulp in the mother's name, in the mother's words. So with that being said, and if you did see the video, because we're not going to show the video because it's very, very graphic, it's horrible what the city of Memphis did. And they are charging the officers accordingly. So the protesting did work. And as long as it was peaceful, and the protesting was not peaceful in Memphis. The protesting that has to occur in the United States to get something done is peacefully protesting. We got things done by peacefully protesting throughout the whole history of the United States. So we need to continue to peacefully protest. To do what you want to do, you need to peacefully protest. Building down cities and burning down and looting businesses that have nothing to do with the situation will not solve any problems that you have in your palm, in front of your eyes. It will not solve anything. With that being said, we're going to be moving on to the next article from the segment section. We're actually going to be moving on to the other headline of the week. We actually have footage of attack on Paul Polosi is released. San Francisco law enforcement officials released body cam footage Friday from the October attack on Rep. Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Polosi. His San Francisco judge ordered that the footage be made public after a coalition of news outlets filed a motion to release the footage on January 11th. The footage shows police knocking on the door of the home before either Polosi or DePape opened it. "What's going on, man?" an officer asked. "Everything good?" DePape responds as he wrestles for control of the hammer with Polosi. "Drop the hammer," the officer says. No, DePape responded before gaining control of the hammer and striking Polosi. "Oh, poop," one of the officers says, as police rush to stop DePape and the attack. Now let's watch the video, and it is, yes, very graphic.
Yeah. Fucking said 2620, right? No, 2640. Oh, yeah, it literally said that. Hi. Hey guys. How you doing?
How are you?
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope. Hey.
What is going on right now?
I'm not getting an answer on calls.
Okay,
Oh, shit.
I don't want to do that. Okay. I will look away. I will look away because of the fact that I do not want to see a grown man being struck. That's very bad. So I will block that out in editing because this is the unedited version. I don't want to see that. Paul Polosi was attacked on October 28th by a nudist activist who broke into the Pelosi residence seeking to kidnap the then House Speaker. Prosecution said on a Purdle hearing, the activist, who protesters identified as 42-year-old David DePape, attacked Paul Polosi after not being able to locate his wife. DePape had pleaded not guilty on all charges, which include both state and federal charges. He is expected to appear in state court on February 23rd to set a date for his trial. He is being held in jail without bail. Authorities said that San Francisco police entered the Pelosi residence around 2:30 a.m. local time on the night of the attack. An assailtant and Pelosi struggled over a hammer, and then the assailtant violently attacked Paul Polosi, the police said. After the attack, Polosi was taken to the hospital where he underwent successful surgery to repair a skull fracture and serious injuries to his right arm and hands. A spokesman for Nancy Pelosi said at the time. DePape broke into the house shouting, "Where's Nancy?" A court affidavit said. DePape told first responders at the scene that he was sick of the level of lies from politicians in Washington and came here to have a little chat with Paul Pelosi's wife, according to court filings. Now, I'm going to stop right here. Why is there even a situation about anybody going into the Speaker of the House at the time at their house? Why is there any chance of that even happening? There should be security there, and there is security there. So what's happening with the security? Well, just because Nancy Pelosi is out of town, you're just going to say, "Oh, okay, no security is needed then." No, you should have security there. That's why we hire 24/7 security. That's the reason, because we don't trust that our house security system is going to be enough. Now, moving on to a dozen takes.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love.
Starting with the first article, my God, Senator lays out what stood out in Memphis police chief interview. CNN's Sarah Sider and Don Lemon discussed his interview with Memphis police chief Cyrilyn C.J. Davids ahead of the release of the body cam footage video of the beating of Tyree Nichols, who died 3 days after a traffic stop. 5 officers have been fired and facing criminal charges, including second-degree murder charges. I guess they just linked the video. I don't want to see a CNN video, so we're going to be moving on to the next article, which we already covered this anyway. It's very, very brutal what happened. Moving on to the next article from CNN. Fact check. McCarthy's, quote, false, misleading, and evidence-free claims since becoming House Speaker. So, Pelosi and the debt ceiling. McCarthy has cited the example of Rep. Nancy Pelosi, his Democratic predecessor, as House Speaker while defending conservative Republicans' instance that any argument to lift the federal debt ceiling must be paired with cuts to government spending, a trade-off McCarthy agreed to when he was trying to persuade conservatives to support his bid for Speaker. Specifically, McCarthy has claimed that even Polosi agreed to a spending cap as part of her deal to lift the debt ceiling under Trump. When Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, that's what transpired. To get a debt ceiling, they also got a cap on spending for the next 2 years. McCarthy told reporters at a press conference on January 12th, when Fox News host Maria Bartiromo told McCarthy in a January 15 interview that they would not agree to a spending cap. He responded, "Well, Mariah, I don't believe that that's the case because when Donald Trump was president and when Nancy Pelosi was speaker, that's exactly what happened for them to get a debt ceiling lifted at the time. They agreed to a spending cap. Facts first." McCarthy claims are highly misleading. The deal Pelosi agreed to with the Trump administration in 2019 actually loosened spending caps, and that were actually in place at the time because a 2011 law. In other words, while congressional conservatives today want to use a debt ceiling deal to reduce government spending, the Pelosi deal allowed for billions in additional government spending above the pre-existing maximum. The two situations are nothing alike. So, facts first, according to CNN. So, what McCarthy is actually saying is that he will not agree to a spending cap. So I just don't exactly know what's happening here. He said, and I'm going to repeat the quote, "Well, Mariah, I don't believe that's the case because when Donald Trump was president and when Nancy Pelosi was speaker, that's exactly what happened for them to get a debt ceiling lifted last time. They agreed to a spending cap." So they got a debt ceiling lift at that time. So they allowed for billions and more in additional government spending. But again, they were agreed to a spending cap, which of course they will not talk about. Even if they're saying under Trump, yes, under Trump, Trump's administration was from 2018 to 2020 or 2016 to 2020. So saying that the Trump administration in 2018 actually loosened spending caps, that's 2019. There's 4 years in between. There's 3 years in between that. So you're actually looking at 1 year and you're saying, "Oh, this is what happened during this year, so that's what happened during all the years." No, you're nitpicking things that happened just because of that reason. Now, moving on to the next article from MSNBC, which is actually worse than CNN, we have Trump's pending return to Facebook is more about cash than speech. Meta allowing Donald Trump to regain his accounts, offer him a renewed platform for fundraising ahead of 2024. We knew it was likely coming, but it still feels unsettling that former President Donald Trump will soon regain access to his Facebook and Instagram accounts. Meta, the parent company for the two platforms, claimed the new guardrails are in place to keep the former president in line. I have doubts about that, but I'm less concerned about the actual content that Trump posts or his Instagram or his campaign puts out in his name than the financial windfall he would reap. So of course, he will get money if he joins Facebook because Facebook has ads on their platform. Now, of course, he will be paying Facebook and Instagram money for advertising on their platform. So what goes around comes around. If you give Trump some money, then he's going to give you some money. I mean, that's how equal payments work. I mean, CNN, this is exactly what you're doing. You're paying some companies like Facebook and Instagram or Twitter to advertise on their platforms, but of course, on the same exact time, you have ads on those platforms that you're making money before videos that you post on those platforms. That's what happens. As the Atlantic Charlie Wiesel argues, Facebook is no longer the culture-shaping juggernaut it once was. Both Trump and Facebook appear to have lost the juice, he writes. Many people still support Trump, and many people still use Facebook products, but the shine is gone, all that matters. Trump himself seemed to acknowledge the site's recent decline. Facebook, which lost billions of dollars in value since deplatforming your favorite president, me, of course, it sounds like a Trump thing to say, has just announced that they are reinstating my account, he crowed on his social media platform. Such a thing should never happen again to a sitting president or anybody else who is not deserving of a retribution. From where I'm sitting, the biggest effect of the Trump return to Facebook isn't the reopened fire hose of lies that got him suspended, but a renewed stream of cash to his 2024 coffers. It's true that the Trump political machine already has a ton of money in the bank, sort of. As of late November, the various political action committees, either controlled by Trump or supporting him, were sitting on roughly $95 million. But as The Guardian recently reported, only a small fraction of that amount can be used in a direct support of Trump's campaigning. His Make America Great Again PAC, which was born out of his previous campaign committee, had about $35 million cash on hand at the end of last year's midterms. Moreover, Trump's digital fundraising has been lagging behind in previous runs. By the end of the most recent Federal Election Commission reporting cycle on November 28th, his new campaign vehicle, Donald J. Trump for President 2024 Incorporated, has brought in about $4.1 million on the heels of his low-energy kickoff rally. That's a marked decline from even a year before, when his various efforts were pulling in unheard of sums for a former president. The evidence likely points to a vague among small donors, many of whom Trump has repeatedly milked for cash using shady recurring payment practices. But the thing is that you're also not taking into account that people have a lot less money on their hands now. If people don't have enough money for eggs like we talked about at the beginning of this video, now that they're $4 per dozen, then people are not going to have enough money to just spare Trump $20, $50, even $100. So if people don't have enough money for that, then how do you expect Trump's going to make any money? Of course, it's not just his fault, it's everybody's fault. Moving on to the next article from MSNBC, we have Colin Kaepernick's new documentary destroys one of Kevin McCarthy's talking points.
I got facts over facts over.
This is written by Jan Jones, of course, our favorite journalist over on MSNBC. Former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick is well versed in the art of making bold, evocative statements about the realities of inequality in the United States. His latest statement, a new documentary he's exclusive produced for Hulu, takes aim, of course Hulu would fund this, takes aim at a familiar target, state-sanctioned violence, police, and corruption. Of course, Colin Kaepernick would talk about this. Takes aim at a familiar target, state-sanctioned violence, police, and corruption. The project is set in Bakersfield, California, and includes another high-profile foe, new House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Killing Country, set to debut February 3, highlights the 2013 police shooting of George Ramirez Jr. in Bakersfield, which is part of McCarthy's district. Ramirez was shot and killed by Bakersfield police. Authorities said at one point the shooting was part of a botched police informant operation, but many details remain unclear. The city reportedly reached a settlement with Ramirez's family for $400,000, but no official has yet been punished for Ramirez's death. Okay, so let me just hear you out. So there was a settlement, okay, and the family was paid money by the state. So the state apologized for the actions of that police officer. So what is the point? What, you're saying that there was no repercussions? Yes, there was repercussions. You got money and you settled. Now that's over. You got the money. You settled for that money. If you didn't want to settle for that money, you would continue suing the state. No, you settled. Now you can't bring up that situation again because you settled for the situation that unfolded. That's how this works. The filmmakers investigate that they saw a raft of police violence in Bakersfield, in particular gun violence, that's turned Bakersfield and the surrounding Kern County into one of the nation's most violent regions over the last decade. This is because of the lack of police presence, of course. And this isn't the first time someone has noted the violence in McCarthy's district. In recent years, as McCarthy and fellow Republicans have tried to portray Democrat-led cities as overturned with crime, journalists have pointed out the violence exploding in McCarthy's own backyard. But like me, in my show, we talked about, on Saturday I posted the video, all of the violence happening in Democrat cities. We, at this point, had 40 mass shootings in this year alone. By the time that this video comes out, we've had 30 days of 2023. We had 40 mass shootings. 82% of those mass shootings happened in Democrat-run cities. So you're going to talk about these, Jan Jones, you're going to talk about these small situations that happen in cities that Republicans come from. But you're not going to talk about the fact that mass shootings, 82% of them in this year, 2023, happened in Democrat-run cities. So what are you talking about exactly? And what's the point you're trying to make? I know the point that you're trying to make, but it's not a clear one, and it's not anyway enough. Moving into the next article from NPR, Meta allows Donald Trump back on Facebook and Instagram. Let's hear NPR's take. Former President Donald Trump will be allowed to return to Facebook and Instagram more than 2 years after he was banned for inciting violence when his supporters stormed the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Trump's accounts will be reinstated, quote, in the coming weeks, with the new guardrails to deter repeat offenders. Nick Kling, president of global affairs at Facebook parent company Meta, said on Wednesday. The, quote, serious risk to public safety that led Meta to suspend Donald Trump in January 2021 has significantly receded, Clegg wrote in a blog post. Still, he said, Trump would face, quote, highlighted penalties should he continue to break Meta's rules, including removal of posts and even a fresh 2-year suspension. The public should be able to hear what their politicians are saying, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that they can make informed choices at the ballot box. But that does not mean that there is no limits to what people can say on our platform, Clegg said. But Clegg, okay, just hear me out. What the hell is the First Amendment of the United States of America? Is that, let me hear it, the freedom to say with me, the freedom of speech. Wow. So why are you infringing on our former president of the United States First Amendment right of the United States Constitution? Why are you playing God in this situation? Who are you to say what they can and cannot say? Just because you put, quote, highlighted rules and guardrails in the way of what Trump wants to say does not mean that he has to follow those guardrails, because you yourself are in possession of the public square of the United States. Most of the public uses Meta's platforms, Facebook and Instagram. And the other side of the public uses Twitter. So those 3 major platforms are the public square of the United States. You should not be restricting what people can say in the public square of the United States, because you yourself are not the barrier of what the United States Constitution stands for. You do not know what the First Amendment is, because if you did, you will not follow these, quote, guide rails that you set forth for the former president of the United States. Moving on. Trump's suspension was controversial, and so is his reinstatement, of course, because the libs that are on Facebook now, because all the Republicans got off of Facebook and Meta's platform more particularly, more libtards are on there. So the libtards are getting mad that he's going to be reinstated, of course. And then the Republicans are going to come back, just like with Twitter. Republicans got off of Twitter because they were banning us, and now we know from Elon Musk's Twitter files that they actually were suspending us and blacklisting us. And we got off those platforms. But as soon as Elon Musk took back over the platform, we just flowed right back to the platforms. In a statement on Truth Social, the company Trump helped create and financially back, the former president said Facebook, which lost billions of dollars in value since deplatforming your favorite president, me, had just announced that they're reinstating my account. Such a thing should never happen again to a sitting president or anybody else who is not deserving of retribution. Trump's campaign had formally petitioned Meta to reinstate him, saying that the ban had dramatically distorted and inhibited the public discourse, which is correct. Meta's announcement drew immediate blowback from civil rights and advocacy groups, of course. So the civil rights groups are going to talk about civil rights. You're going to talk about what? The Constitution, because that is a civil right of the United States Constitution. That's the civil right. That is, we, the people, are civil. We, the people, have rights. The First Amendment right is the most important one. And the Second Amendment right is right there with it. The First and the Second Amendment right is just as important as one another. So why is a civil rights group going to talk about how this is something that should deserve blowback? That's the First Amendment right. That is your freedom of speech. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg's decision to reinstate Trump's accounts is a prime example of putting profits above people's safety. Said NAACP President Derek Johnson. What are you talking about? Public safety? No, the only person that died on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt. That was the only person that died on January 6th. So why are you going to sit here and say, oh, the public safety? No, not public safety. Not public safety at all. Nobody that went to protest on January 6th at the White House Capitol, nobody died there except for Ashley Babbitt, and she was killed by police officers. Wendy Vaya, president of the Global Protect Against Hate and Extremism, warned Trump's reinstatement will reverberate worldwide. So, of course, we're gonna listen to Wendy Ver, Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. But you're extreme in yourself. Authoritarian leading politicians everywhere are watching. They will celebrate this decision, she said. They have already been inspired by Trump's successful manipulation of Facebook and its lax rule enforcement for politically powerful. These far-right leaders will simply ramp up their use of Facebook to spread misinformation to build their base, contributing to political violence and increase in far-right governments. Of course, we're going to have far-right governments because you have far-left governments. California, New York, we have Massachusetts on the list. All these are very left-wing governments. But we're not going to complain about those? No, because you agree with those. Moving on with the article. Facebook is a powerful fundraising tool for Trump's 2024 campaign. Whether or how Trump will return to posting on Facebook is unclear. He has not resumed posting on Twitter, and his agreement with Truth Social is to post there first. Meta's decision to reinstate Trump lands in a social media landscape that has changed markedly in the last 2 years. Facebook is attempting to reinvent itself as a metaverse company. In a move away from its social networking origins, in 2022, the company announced its declines in revenue and users for the first time, of course. Because Facebook, you're just being stupid. I don't even use Facebook anymore, and Instagram is just copying TikTok. So, there's nothing that's new. Twitter is in chaos under the ownership of billionaire Elon Musk, according to NPR, who reversed his platform's ban on Trump in November after polling the site's users. So you believe in democracy. You quote believe in democracy. But now when we have democracy at Twitter, you say, no, we should not do this. Democracy, no. But then when we win an election, just like in the midterm, the democracy is under attack. And a raft of alternative social media sites, from Truth Social to Getter, Parler, and Gab, are wooing conservatives who have long accused the bigger networks of muzzling their political views. And it's not just a guess that we're pulling out of our rear end. No, this is actually something that Elon Musk revealed in the Twitter files. Still, regaining his Facebook account, which had 35 million followers when it was suspended, is likely to be a boon as Trump seeks his presidency in 2024. While he famously used Twitter on the campaign trail in his office to announce policy and judge fans and goon enemies, Facebook was a major engine of his fundraising efforts, generating hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign contributions. Trump's campaign page was not affected by the ban and has continued to raise money via Facebook. Trump continues to amplify false election fraud claims. Okay, so there, NPC or NPR, because they're all bots over there. NPR over here is going to dig into the left-wing view on things, but now they're going to pretend that they're just right-wing. No, they're not center. They're not center. They're left. Okay, we're not even going to trust you. Moving on to the next article from NPR. So, classified documents found at Pence's Indiana home. A small number of documents bearing classified markings were inadvertently boxed and transported to the personal home of former president at the end of the last administration, were collected by the FBI officials from his Indiana home, according to the letters from Pence's representatives to the National Archives and Records Administration. In a letter dated January 18 to Kate Dillon McClure, the acting director of NARA's White House Liaison Division, Craig Jacob, a spokesperson a spokesman for Pence, wrote the documents were discovered January 16 when Pence, out of an abundance of caution following the classified documents recovered at the home of President Biden, and never mind the two other spots that they were found of Biden, and engaged outside counsel with experience in handling classified documents to review records stored in his personal home. Jacobs said that the counsel identified a small number of documents that could potentially contain sensitive or classified information, interspread throughout the records, but added the counsel was unable to provide an exact description of the folders or briefing materials. Vice President Pence immediately secured those documents in a late locked safe, pending further direction on proper handling from the National Archives. Okay, so at this point, the National Archives, why do you need to have all of our classified documents? How about if you don't do that? How about if we just shred them? Like, what if you're going to sit here and say, oh wait, you have classified documents, now you have classified documents, now you have classified documents. What's the point in doing that? How about you just sit here and say, listen, if everybody's going to have classified documents in their house now, because like I said before, it is perfectly reasonable for you to take your work home at the end of the day. And if you are working in the government, especially at the vice president or president ranking or senate ranking, it is perfectly reasonable for you to take your work home at the end of the day. If you work in that field, then you're going to have classified documents that you're dealing with. Of course, we already know this. But the thing is that you're sitting here classifying all these little documents that don't really add up to anything. If it's like the nuclear codes, that's a total different story. And of course, I never had a problem with Joe Biden having any classified documents in his house because of the fact, and as long as he's in good faith using these documents for only his use and his eyeballs only, then I have no problem. Because you work in the government, it is perfectly reasonable for you to take your documents and your work home at the end of the day, especially when you work in government. Now, the only person that did really care about this situation was the Democrats. That's exactly why they made it a big deal. Now, when we make it a big deal on the right, because the left made it a big deal, now we're sitting here copying what you said. Now you get mad at us for doing exactly what you did like that. What a reverse world. Moving on to the next article from Fox News, Catholic lobbyists urge Jim Jordan to probe DOJ's handling of attacks on churches, pro-life centers. Catholic Vote says since March 28, 2020, there have been 278 acts of violence and vandalism against Catholic churches in the United States. A Catholic lobbying firm is pressing House Judicial Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio, to open an investigation into the Justice Department's efforts to arrest and prosecute people responsible for the attacks on churches and pro-life centers in the wake of the leaked Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, when of course they don't know who leaked it. Now, there's not many people that work in the Supreme Court, but they refuse to see, and they refuse to do an investigation. Or they do an investigation, but they can't, no results found. Catholic Vote, a national advocacy organization, sent a letter to Jordan this week in hopes he will launch investigations and DOJ's response to what they say are nearly 300 acts of violence and vandalism against Catholic churches in the United States. Some of those attacks came in the wake of protests after George Floyd's death. So what does churches have anything to do with George Floyd's death? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. See, these people on the left burn down cities and burn down and loot businesses that have nothing to do with the situation. It's one thing to burn down a cop center or a police center, a police department. That's one thing. And I'm not saying that you should even do that. I'm saying that's a very stupid thing to even do that. But I'm saying that I can get the stupid process and the stupid opinions that you actually have when you're doing that. That's what I'm saying. But burning down something that has nothing to do with the situation whatsoever is a total different situation. The letter was sent days after DOJ announced that it had made 2 arrests related to the attacks in the pregnancy center in Winter Haven in Florida, the first arrest related to such attacks. To date, the federal government has only found evidence to charge 2 individuals involved in only a handful of cases, despite hundreds of actual instances of violence, wrote Brian Birch, president of Catholic Vote. These charges only recently came to light, indicating the more sunshine that Congress shines on the indifference of the DOJ, the more likely they will do their job. Since May 28, 2020, there have been 278 acts of violence and vandalism against Catholic churches in the United States. There has been 78 acts of vandalism and violence against pregnancy care centers since the Dobbs leak alone. So just because these pregnancy centers are over here giving what pregnant people actually need to have a successful pregnancy and care for their baby, they're going to go and burn down these places? What does that have to do with anything? Just because they're caring for the people that you don't want to care about does not mean that they're bad people. Moving on to the next article from Fox News, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp activates 1,000 National Guards against Antifa cop protest. So, of course, like I said, it's one thing to protest, but it's another thing to burn, loot, and take from these businesses that have nothing to do with it. And this is exactly what should be done. The governor activated 1,000 National Guard troops and they will deploy them to prevent further violence after masked protesters threw rocks, launched fireworks, and burned a vehicle in front of the Atlanta Police Foundation building last weekend. Georgians respect peaceful protest, but do not tolerate acts of violence against persons or property, the governor's order states. The state of emergency will expire on Thursday, February 9th, unless it's renewed by the governor. Violence erupted in Atlanta last weekend, days after a police-involved shooting of an environmentalist activist. Manuel Esteban Perez Turin, who was protesting the construction of a new police training facility in the Atlanta Police Department, dubbed Cop City by its directors. The 26-year-old protester was shot and killed by law enforcement on January 18. After he was shot, a Georgia state trooper during an operation to remove encamped activists from the construction site of the $90 million Atlanta Police Safety Training Center, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. The wounded state trooper was taken to a local hospital where he underwent surgery, authorities said. So these people are very crazy. So if you look at this picture from Fox News, and I really advise you to go to Fox News to actually see the story. Like I said, the headline from this Fox News article is right here. Go look at foxnews.com and scroll down, see these people. Some of them are even smiling in their picture. Why are they smiling? You were just arrested. How stupid. Anti-police protests called for a night of rage last Friday in response to police-involved shooting. Rioters damaged at least 3 businesses over the weekend, throwing bricks and shattering windows. Fox 5 Atlanta reported at least 2 police cars were targeted and 1 was set on fire. Some of the individuals arrested were found with explosives, as investigators said. 6 suspects, 5 of whom were out of state and who have been charged with domestic terrorism related to last weekend's riots. They were identified as a lot of people that I'm not going to sit here and name all of them. I feel like every single one of these people, if you burn down a building that is a business in the United States and it has nothing to do with the situation, even if it does, if you burn down any situation, that's treason, that's terrorism, and you should be locked up for a year, and you should not have any way to escape that. You should not be able to just pay bail. No bail, 1 year of prison, and that's it. Solitary confinement, you're a terrorist. That's it. If you learn your lesson after that, if you do it again, boom, you're locked up for life. We don't need you on the streets burning down our hardworking citizens' businesses. That's how we get our money at the end of the day. Moving on to the next article from the Daily Wire, we actually have award shows are dying, but does anyone care? No one is watching award shows like they used to. In mid-January, the Golden Globes only managed to draw 6.3 million television viewers, representing the lowest numbers in several years, and a 26% decrease in audience compared to 2021. The particular award show has been plagued by controversy for years. Of critics accused the Hollywood Foreign Press Association of being racist. But no one watched the ceremony even after they spent a full year fine-tuning diversity intuitives. The Globes are not the only award show suffering from a chronic lack of viewers. In September 74th, the 74th Annual Emmy Awards attracted a mere 5.9 million eyes, a huge 25% drop from the previous year's shows. The event, touted as television's biggest night, fell short of the expectations in 2022. Meanwhile, even the glitz and glamour of the Oscars wasn't enough to draw people in like it has in the past. The 94th Academy Awards was a huge fail, as it represents the second least watched Oscars in the history of the show since Nelson started tracking viewers in the mid-1970s. There was a time where major broadcasts like the Academy Awards attracted an audience second only to the Super Bowl. So what's going on with the award shows? Are TV watchers just over it? Yes, they are. Frankly, they are, because they don't want to be pushed an agenda in a news when they're watching the award shows. They just want to see the award show and then get on with their life. There are several expectations for what's going on, and most of them aren't pandemic related. But the pause in live broadcasts did affect viewership numbers, and those people realized they didn't miss watching enough to tune back in. Once you've broken the habit, it's hard to get them back. Once you've broken the habit, it's hard to get them back, said Peter Pearson Beckman, a media consultant who previously worked at Fox and NBC, told the LA Times of people abandoning award shows. The same article noted that members of the 18 to 49 demographic, which were identified as the most attractive to advertisers, are not interested in live broadcasts in the same way as previous generations were. These viewers are hooked on streaming services, and while that may mean missing out on Will Smith slapping Chris Rock on live TV, there's always Twitter and thousands of follow-up memes to catch them up on what happened. And there's always going to be a 1-minute video on TikTok breaking down exactly what happened during the show. Moving on to the next article from the Daily Wire, we actually have Hunter Biden claimed he paid $50,000 a month in rent in favor of paroled cousin. So Hunter Biden incorrectly claimed to pay roughly $50,000 a month in rent on a 2018 form that surfaced amid controversy of classified documents found stored in President Joe Biden's home in Wellington, Delaware, revealed this month. The form also lists the president's Wellington home as his son Hunter's address. Hunter Biden's financial entanglements with foreign businessmen in his penchant for using his last name to secure favors sparked concerns that had Hunter Biden been living at the house with classified documents, people with ill intent toward the United States may have found the sensitive papers. The form found on Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop was attached to a July 27, 2018 email to California apartment complex Assembly trying to secure a lease for the president's son. The apartment was actually for Hunter Biden's cousin, Catherine, the daughter of the president's brother, James, as she was sentenced to 2 years probation and wanted to serve her time in California, where Hunter Biden was living at the time. According to the Washington Free Beacon, Catherine Biden seemingly never made it to the Golden State. Though Hunter Biden tried to secure her housing, the property manager of the apartment complex did not approve of the application. I don't blame them. The form that claimed Hunter Biden's rent payments equaled $49,910 and other facilities came out of a hurried exchange between Hunter Biden and his assistant, Katie Dodge, and the property manager. Please fill back and get to the guy below ASAP. I'm driving with Aunt Val, but I need this done in the next 45 minutes or so. I don't know of sick. That's possible if I need it for Catherine's parole officer. Hunter Biden emailed Dodge on July 27, 2018. Attached to the email was a version of the application to rent an apartment at a Las Vegas luxury apartment complex in the Villa Colorado. The filled-out form contained multiple errors. It suggested Hunter Biden paid a monthly rent of nearly $50,000. The amount matched what Hunter Biden's firm paid quarterly for the office space in the House of Sweden in Washington, D.C. The amount also matched his firm's down payment for the space. The form also claimed that Hunter Biden had never been convicted of a crime, nor had ever been and plunged from his record. Hunter Biden was arrested for drug possession in 1988, but had the charge expunged from his record. Hunter Biden has a long history of drug abuse and has checked into rehab multiple times throughout his life. Of course, he said that he was so addicted to crack cocaine that he instead thought that Parmesan cheese within the rug was crack cocaine, and he would snort that as well for some reason. President Biden's personal attorneys found classified documents stored in the garage of his Wellington home on December 20th. Attorneys found classified documents on at least 2 more occasions earlier this month. The FBI found more classified documents in his home last week. The revelation of the documents has set lawmakers on Capitol Hill questioning what kind of security risks the sensitive papers have caused. This has all the pattern of a influence peddling scheme, and it has all the markings of a potential cover-up. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, told Fox News on Sunday 5 different locations at least who knows of those personal attorneys have been doing. And when you look at all the things that our investigation is covering with the respect to the influence peddling, there's a lot of connections with the CCP directly to both Hunter Biden and Hunter Biden's uncle Jim and Joe Biden. So I completely agree. That is an absurd amount of money. So there is no way in hell that they are paying $50,000 per month in rent at all. Now moving into the next article from the Epic Times, we actually have Texas Democrats decry GOP bill to ban Chinese citizens from buying property in the state. Now I'm going to stop this right there. Chinese citizens is different, but Chinese officials should not be buying land in the United States at all. Why? If we do allow them to do that, then are they going to allow United States citizens or United States officials more to it? United States officials, would they allow United States officials to buy land in China? No, they wouldn't. So why would we let them do that in America? Texas State Rep. Jean Wu, along with more than a dozen fellow Democratic lawmakers, has decried state legislation supported by a GOP lawmaker that would ban the sale of land to Chinese citizens, governments, and other entities. I am here in defense of the American dream, Wu told the reporters during a press conference on Wednesday. As the Texas Capitol, this is where we are all here to protect. The China-born Houston Democrat held a photo of the Houston home where he grew up, adding that he would not be here if SB 147 were law. His family immigrated to the United States in the 1980s. Just as I have told my own community, the Asian community, we need to be supportive of other groups, because one day they will come for you, Wu said, and we are here. Democrat State Rep. Solomon Boger, who immigrated to the United States from Pakistan when he was 19, called the legislation troubling. What starts in Texas changes the world, he said. Where our legislator goes, the entire country follows, which is why the legislation is so troubling. Okay, so I just don't get why they're saying SB 147 equals Asian hate. It's not Asian hate. We're saying that Chinese officials should not be buying land in America because of the fact that Chinese officials are going to spy on American citizens in America, more importantly, with this land that they're buying from America. And Chinese citizens, yes, should not have land in America because Chinese citizens are very, very loyal to the CCP. So they will report back to the CCP what America is doing. That's a Chinese spy. Moving on. About SB 147. In November, Republican Senator Louis Kolkhorst pre-filed SB 147, which would ban citizens, governments, and entities of China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia from buying real property in the state of Texas. The growing ownership of Texas land by some foreign entities is highly disturbing and raised red flags for many Texans. Kolkhorst said in a press release in December. Republican Governor Greg Abbott signaled his support for the legislation if it passes. A bill filed in Texas legislature to ban citizens, governments, and entities of China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia from purchasing land in Texas, Abbott wrote on Twitter, "I will sign it. This follows a law I signed banning these countries from threatening our infrastructure." Exactly, they will threaten the infrastructure. And we have a goal here. And that's so to prevent countries that are hostile to the interest of the United States from being able to buy up our farmland or other land that is so important to us. Abbott said, adding that SB 147 would not impact those who are citizens or intend to be citizens of the United States. Currently, the bill does not include such language, and that is a very good distinction from the Epoch Times. They should add that. Just add that to the bill and you're fine. Building on previous legislation, Cold Horse's bill mirrors and builds on SB 2116, known as the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act, which the Republican governor signed into law during the 87th legislative session in 2021. The law prohibits Texas businessmen and government officials from making infrastructure deals with China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. The 2021 legislation, which passed anonymously, was filed in response to the purchase of roughly 140,000 acres near Langland Air Force Base in Del Rio by Chinese billionaire Sun Guolan. The Xi Jinping-based real estate tycoon spent an estimated $110 million to build a wind farm in Valverde County near the Texas-Mexico border. The law took effect immediately after it was signed on June 18, 2021. Wu voted in favor of SB 2116. And I completely agree. If they add those language and this said language to the bill, then you're fine because people would stop talking about it. Moving on to the next article from the Federalist, we have Congress is never going to fix Ticketmaster if all we get from them are cringe Taylor Swift quotes. And I completely agree. We need to actually make good arguments to get a bill passed, not Taylor Swift quotes and vote for Joe 2020. Earlier this week, Congress held hearings to probe Ticketmaster, which has long been one of the most hated companies in America. Members of Congress were unstatementally there to grill Ticketmaster's parent company, Live Nation, over its monopoly, power, and poor business practices that have led to the business crashes, ticket fees, and long wait times for concert goers. Legislators deemed the antitrust inquisition necessary after the ticket distribution giant angered millions of fans with its online meltdown after tickets of Taylor Swift Eras tour recently went on sale, and I remember that. Despite the serious nature of the investigation into Ticketmaster, the legislators leading the hearing often laced their questioning with performance puns and cringy zingers from Taylor Swift songs. May suggest respectfully that Ticketmaster ought to look in the mirror and say, "I'm the problem, it's me," said Kentucky Senator Richard Blumenthal, quoting one of Taylor Swift's latest hits. These cringe-inducing sound bites were quickly posted on the legislators' respective social media pages and were amplified by corporate media and celebrated by Twitter users who don't appreciate the irony of the members of Congress calling out others for running a corrupt, dysfunctional organization. However, the attempts to appeal to youths are not just cringy, they expose how much performance nonsense perverts serious hearings. Ticketmaster is clearly a growing problem for Americans and could very well be in violation of the United States law. Will Congress take action to sate the ire of pop star fans and save Americans from yet another out-of-control company? History says no. Long before distressed Swifties were deprived of a chance to see their childhood idol on stage, and more than a decade prior to the Obama-era Department of Justice facilitated Live Nation and Ticketmaster Entertainment merger in 2010, Congress hosted a similar inquisition into Ticketmaster's potential abuse of power. And yes, nothing will come of this case. I completely agree. Now, with that being said, we need to keep an eye on this case because no verdict was actually released. So, with that being said, thank you all for watching, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. If you did enjoy this episode, we do post new episodes every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you did enjoy this video, look out for new episodes every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we do post new reactions to new music videos that are out every single Saturday. Thank you all for watching, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Bye. Hey, were you really going to click off this video before leaving a like and subscribing down below? Wow, so rude.